The world you were born into, chosen one, is only a flicker, a diluted echo of what once blazed with power. Before you ever opened your eyes, your light was already seen, and it terrified them. Not the world leaders you see on television, but the hidden ones. Those who operate beneath nations, above laws, and outside of time. In an uncharted temple, long forgotten by man, 33 high priests gathered under the last blood moon of the old age. They stood in a circle of obsidian, chanting in a language that hasn't been spoken for 1,000 lifetimes. They didn't come to honor you. They came because of fear. Fear of a soul they could not corrupt, a light they could not program, a memory that couldn't be erased. You are that soul. The systems were set to suppress you, to drain you, to bury your name in noise. But even now, you are rising. You are the rupture in their design. You are the breath between worlds, and they know it. So listen carefully. This isn't a myth. This is your recall sequence. Your awakening was written, but your obedience? Never. These priests were called from esoteric schools that still murmur in symbols, remote orders, and secret lineages. They were not from a single place. They were all bound by a crimson-etched symbol that had been handed down since the collapse of the first Eden. Their only objective was to stifle your entrance and bind your light with vibration, frequency, and memory rather than physical shackles. Under the moonlight, they inscribed your essence in forbidden characters, but they did not speak your name. Have you not felt it? That pain in your heart, like if something holy had been ripped from you? It's residue, not fancy, from a time when the stars lined up to crown you, and hands dressed in old linen reached through veils to put a stop to it. They were only able to delay you, not destroy you. They were only able to bury your essence, not halt it. However, the seal they created is eroding, and time bends in peculiar ways. This explains why sacred geometry attracts you, why symbols hunt you in nightmares, and why your energy interferes with systems that are designed to ignore you. The blood moon is coming again, but this time, it's come to let go rather than bind. And when it reappears, the encoded memory, the one they dreaded and attempted to erase, also starts to resurface inside of you. The artifacts that the 33 left behind are dispersed and encrypted. They were aware that the seal will eventually break. They were certain that someone who could interpret what others wrote off as myth would come back. That return is you. They worried that the frequency was increasing once again. How the 33 priests perform their ritual. Every era has its moments when light is suppressed and buried behind rituals, dread, and lost manuscripts, and when stillness is not calm but confinement. One such instance was the night your aura was shackled. It wasn't a story or a symbol, but rather a planned incident executed by 33 veiled persons, whose identities were kept secret to maintain the appearance that you weren't supposed to be here. Under the crimson moon's gaze, they stood in formation, their mouths moving in perfect harmony as they set a bond that didn't need your consent. All you had to do was be born, show there, and ignite the flame they saw before you could say a word. They assembled in a location that had been removed from maps, close to the meeting point of ancient ley lines, where frequency reacted to thought and the veil was at its thinnest. There, engraved in silver dust collected from falling stars, they inscribed the sigil that symbolizes your light onto a slab that had not seen the sun in millions of years. They started the ceremony by pressing their hands to the stone, as if to muffle your vibration across realms. Their chant was dark and musical, vibrating with purpose that pierced the chronology itself. Even then, your light pulsed. They captured it in bits and pieces, seeing how it wavered in opposition to their spells, as if it were fighting the seal. However, they went all out, adding glyphs on top of glyphs and encoding frequencies that would prevent your soul from lining up with its actual origin. They had faith in authority, hierarchy, and the bloodlines that governed unseen. Their highly coded system was disrupted by your presence, and their only recourse was to veil it in oblivion in order to prevent your waking. The earth under them moved, old systems reacting to the deed they were doing, and the sky above them deepened into red as the ritual reached its last stanza. For a brief while, a tear appeared above the slab, and your light flashed so brightly in that tear that it broke the prepared symbol. However, they kept the crack a secret. In the hopes that it would dissipate, they buried it. Light, however, remembers and does not vanish. It waits, and the resonance of that fracture continues to resonate in the shadows of their abandoned shrine, becoming louder every time you think about what they took. Write Amen for angelic protection and contribute with a super thank you up to $20. The Sealed One and the Warnings of Yeshua. A man who was not one of them but rather the light they dreaded, Yeshua, strolled among the 33 before they were assembled under the red moon. Knowing exactly what the priests of darkness would do one day, he used riddles to communicate with those who could hear, incorporating codes into parables. He once said, "A light sealed in blood shall one day burn through every veil they draw, and the sound of its return shall be louder than thunder." Many people brushed it off as a metaphor, but others who were aware of the underlying harmonics of his message saw it as a map and a warning. Unlike other people, Yeshua spoke of vibration, soul alignment, and the awakening that cannot be programmed out of a being's nature. He did not talk of kingdoms or empires. He described a moment when someone would arrive with an inner fire that no priesthood could extinguish, yet without robes or ceremonies. He said that while this light would be born out of repression, it would emerge via memory, celestial indications, and the disruption of cycles that others had spent decades perfecting. At that time, the red moon was a portal rather than only an omen. Fragments of the Sealed One, the Breaker of Darkness, and the flame bound beneath 33 remain, scrolls not yet canonized, symbols buried in desert stone. Yeshua's allusions to the blood ritual resurface in subtle ways in hidden texts carried by those who escaped persecution. When the watchers form their ring of power, beware, for the child of light shall stir beneath the altar. These were not the teacher's poetic reflections, but time-encoded warnings sent to the person who would need them most, you. As if to reflect the stillness imposed on your soul, this code even included his silence before to his crucifixion. Through ceremony, treachery, and systems designed to make fun of the holy, he demonstrated what it meant to be a light bearer. And when he came back intact, he had destroyed not only death, but also the notion that the seal would remain intact indefinitely. You were predicted, not just seen. Write Amen for angelic protection and contribute with a super thank you up to $20. Located under ancient ruins is the altar of your name, an altar that was carved into stone by frequency using pure harmonic resonance rather than by hand, is located under a ruin so old that even the Anunnaki were afraid to approach it. It is claimed to reside under the surface of a space engulfed by time, where compasses whirl irrationally and maps disappear. There are no sacrifices or candles on this altar, no symbols of devotion, just a single phrase that is repeated in many languages, both alive and dead, and engraved into the earth's very veins. And your name is that term. They didn't say it with respect. Instead, they muttered it like a curse, as if the very words may cause the area surrounding them to erupt. The 33 high priests only knew the impact of your energy while you were unbound. They had no idea where you came from. They were afraid of how your aura affected their delusions and how your presence caused the structures they had spent their whole lives creating to fall apart. Thus, this shrine served as their epicenter when they assembled for the last seal, the starting point of a ceremony intended to repress something they would never completely understand. The echo is still present in the surrounding earth. You can feel it in your bones if you remain still long enough, A hum that sounds like a song that never really started, vibrating from a place that is deeper than words and deeper than flesh. Not in thinking, but in vibration. It appeals to those whose DNA has the memories. Some things cannot remain buried, particularly when they were never really dead. But this altar was never intended to be discovered again. To deter anybody from approaching, they erected rooms around it, filled with bogus scriptures and deceptive artifacts. However, the fact has not changed. Below the last room, a locked area protected by sound, not traps, but frequencies that confuse memory, confuse the soul, and break the will. Unaware that they have ever walked in, those who enter without alignment go. However, those who bear the original light, those who are in line with the crack that the priests feared, they passed through unharmed, drawn ahead by an enduring ancient identification. And your genuine essence was last captured, not by hand, but by light in that shrine, still humming under their deception, a glimpse of the same power they were afraid might reappear. Its hum intensifies with every moon, awaiting your return and the unlocking of what they could only postpone, not destroy. The programmed return and the messenger. Once upon a time, a person known simply as the messenger was clad in time rather than fabric. This creature, who was neither a priest nor a prophet, traveled between worlds with inscriptions that were too ephemeral for temples, too clean for empires, and too divine for the ruling class, who were afraid of them coming undone. A single line encoded under several constellations and repeated throughout civilizations may be found in the scrolls that were never published. The light returneth, as written. To the unawakened, it was poetry. To the selected, it was programming. Beyond only words, the messenger left behind vibration maps that were embedded in building, chants that have been forgotten, and the natural abnormalities themselves. His imprint could be seen in the tilt of the constellations, the spirals of seashells, and even in the paused timelines where history abruptly ends without any reason. His goal was to make sure your return could not be undone, not to rescue the planet. Buried in a desert whose sands predate human memory, a black monolith bore one of his last messages, carved in light. The symbols, when properly decoded, depict a crimson eclipse in which 33 shadows seal an energy. They caution that the one who breaks the seal must always remember to ask the world it came to awaken for permission. And the sound is where memory starts. The true chosen were encoded with the resonance to simply feel it, while scholars miss the point, arguing over literal meaning. Yeshua also made reference to the messenger, not by title, but by pattern. The one who carries the voice before the thunder, he said, shall walk alone through shadow, yet mark the path for those who will become. This was design, not prophecy. And suddenly, long silent indicators are moving once again. Once dormant patterns in blood and architecture are resurfacing. It is a calling for those who are encoded with the light, but it is a terror for those who are connected with the old priesthood. Previously again, the glyphs of the messenger vibrate, and the sentence reappears in mirrors, in murmurs from worlds you previously believed to be figments, and in dreams. The light returneth, as written. The real reflection of the blood moon, your signature. As the last blood moon rose, the night sky caught its breath, illuminating the sky with a red brilliance that was not the result of science, but of deliberate action. This eclipse was not your typical one. It was the site of a ceremony that would be remembered for decades to come. The priests had been anticipating this alignment. According to their manuscripts, there would be a single moon phase during which the curtain would slightly lower, giving them access to the light they were most afraid of, yours. When the time came, they gathered precisely, and as their chant blended into the air, it caused waves and dimensions that few were willing to identify. The moon sobbed crimson over them, not for destruction, but for hiding. It was responding to the intention of people below as well as the planet's alignment. Because the moon is a mirror and a record keeper, in addition to being a rock. It reflects light rather than producing it. And it mirrored the ceiling of yours that evening. The red hue wasn't a cosmic coincidence. Rather, it was the remnant of holy light that was being concealed by fear and pressure. The animals became quiet. The wind slowed. Oceans paused. The planet was aware of what people had forgotten, that something heavenly was being muffled, not extinguished, but dulled, and put in echo chambers of ancient power circles, older than Babylon, older than pyramids, and older than the concept of control itself, under locks carved in frequency. They dubbed it protection. By calling you a disturbance, a variable too erratic to let to develop naturally, they rationalized the behavior. However, resonance was something they never took into consideration, because light leaves a mark even after it is shut. And that red moon became your signature, even if it was supposed to represent your repression. Their terror and your survival were marked by the crimson, which also served as a timestamp. And in every succeeding generation, those who are attuned to the language of the sky experience an odd tug during eclipses, a far-off recollection that is not theirs, yet is strangely familiar. That explains why the blood moon makes you feel something in your chest, and why its shadow makes your dreams more intense. It's cellular memory, not simply moon magic. It's the echo of a sealing that was done a long time ago but didn't hold up as well as they had planned. And now, something in the seal begins to quiver as the moon gets ready to reflect the light of a planet that is shivering in imbalance once again. And while you wait for the crack to expand, the light inside of you starts to push against its prison. The lamp beneath the altar, the last parable of Yeshua. Yeshua spoke one more tale to a group of people that history never wrote down, not because they weren't there, but because they were wiped along with the truth they contained, before the veil became too thick and the councils cut off his voice. He whispered, "A lamp once hidden beneath the altar shall be struck by no hand, and yet it shall burn again. And when it does, those who sealed it will tremble." Few understood. But he wasn't talking about an object. He was talking about you. He looked to the east, where the moon would rise blood red in a few days. He was aware of what the 33 would try. He saw it in the distortion of the chronology they would attempt to change, in the smoke of their future ceremony, and across the veil. Nevertheless, he decided to use vibration, frequency, ingrained in the hearts of the chosen, instead of force or dominion to combat them. The last story was encoded for one mind, one light, and one creature who would hear it with memory rather than ears. They were most afraid of the entity. They attempted to seal that entity beneath a crimson moon. The writing on a manuscript that was buried in a now demolished church faded, but the vibration persisted. The elders who continued to listen to the stars recalled a passage that was left out of all subsequent translations. "The one who carries the light shall break not the world, but the lie that binds it." Yeshua included your homecoming into the design of divine time, not only foretelling it. A sign of anchoring frequency across planes, a vertical light crossing the horizontal illusion, was even the cross, which was misinterpreted for ages. He was not defeated when he went to the cross. Rather, he was beginning a pattern for people like you, who would rise not in renown, but in force. A quiet brilliance based on restoration rather than spectacle. Therefore, the last tale was not a farewell. Rather, it was a transmission of force, memory, and divine resistance against unnatural quiet. In front of those who believed the seal would remain in place forever, the issue is not whether the light may rekindle, but rather when and what will happen when it does.